ESADE, to be honest, ESADE, so I had a bias as well because ESADE was my dream school. A
Wow.
school senior studied there, so I always, and that was the first college I had in my mind when I started my MBA journey in 2020.
Hmm.
First is the flexibility of the program. Like I
Hmm.
mentioned at the start, ESADE's program is very flexible. We are at the end of our core term,
Yep.
and after June, you are free to do whatever you want.
Hmm.
The second thing that I like about ESADE is the collaborative spirit. I think anyone you talk to at ESADE will talk about it, but the people over here are very collaborative. It's a very diverse background. Jan would be a good month to start preparing. My recommendation is strongly to give the GRE because it's slightly simpler, and I've given both exams. I've
Yeah.
given both exams twice, so I know which is simpler.
Hi, Saurabh. Welcome to Croissant Corner. Thank you so much for taking time out. It's a pleasure to have you on board. And thank you so much for agreeing to share your experience with this Ade.
Hi, Parv. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to do this with you.
Great. So we're just going to quickly deep dive into our questions. But before we do that, why don't you give us a brief introduction about yourself? What were you doing before your MBA?
Yeah. So hi, my name is Saurabh. I come from India. I completed my engineering in 2017 in Mumbai and briefly worked in my family business, which is in manufacturing for a year. After that, I decided to move to a more structured learning environment, and then I joined a consulting firm called ZS Associates. I worked for their Pune office for over 4 years, and then I had my MBA admit at different colleges, and I picked ESADE out of it. And after that, I did a short stint with a startup, which was Open Secret for as a MBA intern.
Yep.
And right now, I'm doing my full-time MBA at ESADE. We are in the final core term of our program, and after this, everyone will get split into whatever they want to do. So, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
short introduction about myself.
Yeah, that's great. Pretty interesting story. So if you can just help me understand what sort of motivated you to do an MBA and why did you choose this, Ade?
Yeah. Okay. So I always wanted to have a master's degree, but to be honest, I did engineering and I realized it was good. It was a good learning experience, obviously, but I did not have the technical aptitude per se. I was not technically strong,
Sure.
and I realized that my management subjects were more stronger.
Yep.
So I wanted to do an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
Indian MBAs, there were it's a long list of reasons, pros and cons, why I weighed out the Indian MBAs.
Right.
But I realized that the international MBAs require work experience.
Yep.
So, not having that technical aptitude strong, plus having a strong ZS work experience made me realize, okay, my company is renowned, so that also helps me do the MBA.
Sure.
And also not only the MBA, but for future employment as well, it's important to have a strong background or what you're doing.
Yep.
So all these reasons made the decision to for me to do an MBA.
Yep.
Also, I one of the reasons was that while at ZS, the company is more focused on pharmaceuticals
Sure.
and healthcare. Not completely, but at least the that I had was completely focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted a more diverse industry exposure, and to pivot from ZS to anything else, then
Yep.
MBA was that stepping stone for me as well.
Sure.
And the last reason was more about just learning from people. Uh, and international MBA was definitely going to add value to that.
True.
At here, I can touch upon why I picked Asade, but yeah, just learning from people would be a point that I wanted to have an exposure to different nationalities.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
think I think you're correct. Especially after COVID, I think a lot of us back home have realized, considering that the businesses have gone digital, uh,
yeah.
businesses are not really restricted by geographies and boundaries, right? So I think it's important for everyone to now start understanding that globalization, which we were talking about back in the day, I think this is the time when it's actually happening. And yeah, I
Correct,
think
correct.
the right time. Yeah, sorry, you were talking about your experience at Isade. I mean, why did you choose Isade?
Yeah, and touching upon what you said itself, like for me, ESADE, to be honest, ESADE, so I had a bias as well because ESADE was my dream school. A
Wow.
school senior studied there, so I always, and that was the first college I had in my mind when I started my MBA journey in 2020. So I always had that in mind. But I wanted ESADE for three reasons. So
Hmm.
first is the flexibility of the program. Like
Hmm.
I mentioned at the start, ESADE's program is very flexible. We are at the end of our core term.
Yep.
And after June, you are free to do whatever you want in your MBA. There are a certain number of credits that you need to complete, but you can complete that within 3 months or 9 months, up to you. And
Good.
between those 3 to 9 months, you can do different things. So you can either go for a student exchange, you can stay at ESADE and pick all the electives that are there. Uh, or you can, if you have an internship, you can go out and do one internship, you can do two internships.
Okay.
There is a program that ESADE has in partnership with CERN facility, which is based in Switzerland.
Yep.
Uh, it's called CBI. I'm not going to be doing that, so I don't have much details on it. But there are these lot of different things that you can do in those 12 to 9 months, sorry, 3 to 9 months.
Sure.
So this flexibility of the program was something that was important to me and that attracted me.
Hmm.
The second thing that I liked about ESADE is the collaborative spirit. I think anyone you talk to at ESADE will talk about it, but the people over here are very collaborative. It's a very diverse background. It's
Right.
not a big cohort. It's a cohort of around, I think, 160, 170 people, but we have 46 nationalities representing. So in
Wow.
terms of this nationality to student ratio, it's a great learning experience because you're exposed to multiple nationalities.
Yep.
So diversity and collaboration was the second reason. And the third was Barcelona, very honestly. It's a great city. It's not very expensive, to be honest, because the other options were like Milan, Paris, and London. I wanted to do my MBA in Europe,
Yep.
but Barcelona is not as expensive as the other cities. The weather is really good. It's a lot more international than the other cities.
Yep.
So Barcelona as a city was also one of the reasons that I picked Asade.
Ah, nice. Hablo español.
Poco.
Ah, nice. Great. And so that's actually great. You got to enter your dream school. But when did you start preparing for it? I'm pretty sure there was
Uh,
GMAT, there was application
yeah.
process, essays. So what's the timeline candidate should look at?
I'll tell you my timeline and then I'll tell
Yeah,
the other timelines because I
sure.
talk to a lot of candidates these days and I like helping. So I started in May 20, May during the COVID, I think, yeah, May 2020, I would say May or June 2020.
Sure.
I tried taking the GMAT, but like I said, my test taking abilities are not good. So I gave the GMAT once, it did not go well. I gave it the second time, it did not go well. I was on a sabbatical during this time with ZS Associates.
Okay.
Uh, After that, I applied to five colleges in Europe, ESADE being one of them,
Yeah.
but I got rejected from everywhere. ESADE interviewed me, but apart from that, I got rejected.
Hmm.
And in the second year, then I pivoted to giving the GRE. So I gave the GRE, changed my strategy a bit, and then applied. That time, I did not honestly have a great GRE score as well. Yeah. So for GMAT, I had, I think, a 620 and a 650, and that
Hmm.
obviously got me rejected. GRE, I had a 319,
Good.
but I had a strong quant score. I think I had a 167 or 168, most likely 167,
Hmm.
and which is again not a very strong score to be honest. But that time my applications were focused better. I think we can cover that part later.
Yep.
So I applied to a lot of schools and I think I had four or five admits, but I picked Asade. But for any candidate who's targeting, I think the first round starts in September or October, right?
Right.
So Jan would be a good month to start preparing. My recommendation is strongly to give the GRE because it's slightly simpler, and I've given both exams. I've
Yeah.
given both exams twice, so I know which is simpler. I gave the GRE the second time, but I got a 318, so it was 1 point lower.
Sure.
But I strongly recommend people to give the GRE. Also, GMAT is very expensive in terms of the preparation. GRE has a lot of free preparation available online. In the form, I can't recall actually. There's this guy on, he charges $5 per month. I can't recall him right now, but if I
Okay.
do, I'll let you know.
Sure.
Uh, there is one guy called Tested Tutor on YouTube. He teaches quants for free. So GRE is one cheaper. It's way easier.
Hmm.
Also, having said that, I think the GMAT format has recently changed, so I don't
Yes.
know how that is being accounted to this. So my knowledge is old.
Yeah.
Uh, so any candidate, I think, can start preparation in Jan, study for 3 months, give the first attempt, see how it goes, keep a buffer for the second attempt because it is required generally to
Sure.
have that buffer. Plan that within a month, and then from I think April or May onwards, they should jump onto their applications because sure, GMAT, GRE, or the internal exam that they have is a part,
Hmm.
but there are I think 6 to 7 criteria that an application is going to be evaluated on.
Sure.
And you need to secure the other points as well. So the essays also play a big role. Your goals, your story is going to play a big role as well.
Right.
And then May onwards, I think the candidate can start focusing on the applications and most likely try applying in the first rounds because that's a good opportunity to get in.
Yeah, sure. Sure. And it's good that you picked on GRE versus GMAT, because I think a lot of students have this confusion. What exam should I take? And to your point, yes, GMAT has now changed its format. Uh,
Yeah.
it's for somewhere around about 2 hours, 15 minutes. They've taken off one section. They don't have geometry anymore. So yeah, multiple changes, but let's see how that pans out. But on that note,
Yeah.
what just wanted to understand from you, what do you think sort of stood out for you in this application process when you were applying in ESADE? I'm pretty sure there's a pool of applications which ESADE would receive, right? But do you think there was something specific which sort of helped you out to stand out from rest of the applicants?
So not only at ESADE, but I think I also had an admit at Bocconi, by the way. So
Okay.
if that helps candidates, because I picked ESADE over Bocconi, and Bocconi is very highly ranked.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think made me stand out was that I had a really strong extracurriculars.
Sure.
Uh, as strong as extracurriculars I had, like if extracurriculars is at the strong end of the spectrum, my academics were at the weak end of the spectrum. So I really had a very, I would say, poor academics. I was not even sugarcoating it. It was like very poor in my engineering. So I had to cover up for it in that aspect. So my academics were here. My GRE was also somewhere on the lower side of the
Sure.
spectrum as well. But fortunately, my extracurriculars was very strong. And that
Right.
includes that I used to be a national level badminton player in the past.
Wow.
I had advanced open water scuba diving certification. Not only scuba diving, but I was enthusiastic about it.
Sure.
So I had that in my plate as well. I have done like 5 high altitude Himalayan expeditions,
Yep.
and some basic certifications of surfing and kayaking. So all these things at ESADE, you also have questions like tell us a moment that you are proud about yourself, or tell us how you overcame a challenge in your life,
Yeah.
and how you're going to add value to the class. So all these essay questions for me were not answered in a corporate answer manner way or like a professional answer. They
Yeah.
were more about my personal stories on how I've overcome different challenges in my life, but I was still able to do the things that were still extracurricular, but I still added them in my profile, and I think that made me stand out
Yeah. Yeah.
than the other applicants.
Sure. No, I think, and it's important for our listeners and our viewers to understand that typically what people think that if you have to enter into a top business school or an Ivy school, you need to be academically strong. Your test score has to be like through the roof, and you have to be great in
You
extracurriculars. But yeah, so, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I'm saying you do, don't, so don't take that
No,
as
no,
a
I'm
no,
not
that
saying,
I'm not
I'm not saying it.
advocating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not saying that.
yeah,
I mean, my only point here is that uh, it's not. It's good if you're. I mean, you're able to secure your position more comfortably. But it's not that if you're not great doesn't mean that you should not apply. I mean, if you're
yeah,
really good in terms of extracurriculars or professionally, you've done pretty well, but academically you're not that great. That's okay. Because that's how the schools look at when it comes to applications, right? It has to be a good mix of people from different backgrounds, from different professional experience. So yeah, I think that's one
yeah.
good takeaway.
I also very strongly advocate have if your profile is like mine where you have extracurriculars but you have like poor academics. I'm also not good at story writing or creating stories. Over the course, however, I've learned because I was a re-applicant. So, but I would also very highly vouch that you should have someone to work your applications on.
Sure.
Uh, some admissions coach or someone, they do generally help
Hmm.
because I assume that some people think they're expensive and all of that, but again, I left my scholarship. So Alliance Manchester had given me a 25% scholarship. Georgia Tech had given me a full ride. Schiller School of Business. Simon Rochester had also given me 65%.
Hmm.
But the admissions coaches do help your profile stand out and build your applications better.
Sure.
And all the stories that you write during this time also help you for your interview preparation or writing your answers during the interviews.
Right.
So that's one reason that I recommend candidates to have some admissions coach who help them prepare their essays, letter of recommendations, and everything else that goes into the application.
So thank you. Just picking on that note, you mentioned that you got scholarship from Rochester, and then I think there were other schools also, right? So,
Yeah,
so I'm guessing that you were selected for schools in US, and then you chose a school in Europe. Why would
Europe.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was going on?
Okay, so just to clear, I do not have any scholarship at ESADE. I did not have scholarship at Bocconi.
Yeah.
It was Alliance Manchester who gave me scholarship in Europe and UK, and Simon Rochester in US, and Scheller School of Business, which is Georgia Tech.
Right.
Uh, for me, I think it was a more of a personal bias that the first year I applied to Europe and I did not get in.
Mhm.
So the second year was like a ultimatum for me that if I don't get into MBA college, I need to like figure out something in India. US one is very far, to be very honest. I
Yeah.
wanted to be somewhere where I can be closer to home. I'm also moving for my internship to Dubai, so that's more closer to home.
Sure.
And if I went to the US, then I would have to work in the US, which is really great. The job opportunities are definitely better there, but I did not see myself settling in the US.
Okay.
The second is that despite having scholarships, the programs are not as highly ranked as ESADE or Bocconi were.
Right.
Uh, Also, personally, like having said that, I think Georgia Tech is a great school. It has a very big brand name. I see that college growing in rankings in the next few years, but I did not want to be in a phase where the college is transitioning
Sure.
into getting there. But not only that, I think they earned a STEM degree 2 years back. Like when I got my admit, I was going to be the second admit batch who had a STEM degree.
Okay.
So their STEM degree wasn't that renowned when I was going to join the school, and there were no people, there were no Indians for me to talk to
Sure.
about how their jobs are. Also, I say specifically Indians because we cannot compare ourselves to any other nationality, even in
True.
Europe or US.
Yeah.
We don't have the visa, we don't have the language. So all these things play a different role, and then that's why Indians are a separate category of themselves. I think the third reason was that I had just had a personal bias for
Yeah.
Europe. I think Europe has more history. You can travel around a lot.
Yeah.
I feel that the class diversity here is more. We have only three Spanish candidates in the entire cohort, as opposed to US, where I think more than 40% of the batch is American.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So also on the going back on the second point, for me it did not make sense. I was looking at pure consulting opportunities, and to go to a college that's 20th rank that in the US, that means I had to compete with 19 other colleges to get an internship or a full-time job at a top consulting company. And that didn't seem very practical to me either.
Sure.
And in terms of the scholarship, I thought that okay, it's a short-term thing. I can always recover the cost, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that brand value or the alumni network once I get attached to it.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think these are the three reasons.
I think it was important, and when you mentioned that, the fact that you wanted to get into consulting and you have another 19 business schools right above you,
Yeah,
and that's where
yeah,
you'll be competing. I think a lot of time students usually get driven just by brand names without
yeah,
considering what they really want to do after post MBA, which is also okay
yeah.
because a lot of them are pivoting. But I think it's an important factor for us to figure out that what are we going to do after MBA and how this school is going to help me in my life after
Help.
MBA,
Yeah,
right? Because
correct, correct.
like we say that, when you're moving out from your country and when students are usually pivoting their career, you're literally changing pillars, right? So it's a new country, it's a new job role,
Yeah.
a new industry could be for some. So just changing three pillars at one shot might just get a little tricky.
It's going to
But
be
yeah,
difficult. Yeah. Also, this is also I'm saying this for consulting because consulting
sure.
is different.
Yeah.
So I haven't researched much, but Georgia Tech I'm sure has a great technical recruitment if you're looking for product management roles or any tech roles.
Yeah.
Similarly for Rochester, but for consulting, I don't know how the scenario was. I did not have a lot of people Indians to talk to, and that's why I decided to go against.
Right. And how has your experience been till now? Any particular course, any particular program or module which sort of stood
Uh,
out for you at ESADE?
to be honest, the course has been great. It's really hectic actually. We have three core terms, and the first two core terms have two subterms within it,
Mhm.
and every subterm has around 5 to 7 courses depending. So it's really intense.
Mhm.
In addition to that, you have to have your career sorted out because consulting starts early. The recruitments start in October and November first week itself,
Yeah.
and by Jan end, your internship is also gets sorted if you progress in the application.
Mhm.
Uh, but in terms of the courses, I think I really liked general strategy because I have a bias against for consulting and strategy. So general strategy one, general strategy, corporate strategy two, were the courses I like. This term there are actually exciting courses. We're doing negotiation, so I like the negotiation class that we're doing. There's one leading change class as well.
Mhm.
So these are a few handful of courses that I liked, but they are also because I have a bias for strategy.
Sure.
But apart from that, I think accounting and finance, I don't remember the exact names of the courses, but accounting and finance were the courses that I enjoyed learning because I think they're going to be helping us somewhere down in the future.
Sure.
Uh, so these are the courses that I like. Then there are these things called career acceleration programs, which are not a part of your academics, but you have to apply for it and get selected. So I was a part of the consulting career acceleration program.
Mhm.
That was really really helpful at your the way that it was organized. I felt it was really insightful. So that helped me as well during my
Yeah.
case preparation interviews.
Just wanted to pick your thought on language because when students are coming to Europe, that's a big factor because I mean
Yeah.
every country has a different language, right? So how are you dealing with it? How have you been?
Uh,
Are you fluent Spanish speaker now?
no.
No, and what's your plan like
I,
after MBA?
so okay, one is Spain or sorry, Barcelona is international, but it's still Spanish dominated.
Yeah,
A lot of the people that you meet in the cafeteria or when you're ordering in restaurants are still okay, but generally house help
yeah,
or some you get the stuff that is only Spanish speaking, and then it gets difficult. But in your college, you have so many people from Latin America that they know how to speak Spanish and they help you. So all that is not a problem. But yes, language is a big barrier here. In terms of the jobs, there are some jobs that need the language as a requirement, but not all of them.
sure,
Also, I was focusing more on the Middle East, and I had this set that I need to go to a strategy consulting firm and in Dubai, and it fortunately worked out. But I did not have any other plan or option in mind. But yes, I would say language does play a big role. I don't know Spanish, but I can, if someone is trying to talk, I can understand one or two words here and there because I did a A1 course when I came here. And
sure,
then ESADE also offers in the first two terms as electives if someone wants to still do it. I did not do it because I did not want to waste my, or rather spend my time in learning a language because I don't see myself staying in the long run in Europe,
sure,
or at least in Spain. But in language, yes, is a barrier, but for jobs, it really depends on what the company's requirements are.
sure,
At times, the company does not require a language, but they need you to have a passport, European passport. At times, they don't need you to have a passport, but they need you to know the language. And then there's a third case, which is the best scenario where they're okay to sponsor a visa and they don't require a language as well.
right, right, right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think, yes, this is one of the, I would say, one of the challenges which students often face. So, I mean, again, it's it's the post MBA aspect which
Yeah.
also needs to be
Aspect, yeah,
factored in,
which
which
true.
typically students miss out on when you're back home.
Yeah.
Yes, everything looks fancy, everything looks pretty in Europe, but it's after post MBA the struggle of finding the right job in terms of in your domain, and that I think that's important for them to also research a little bit more
Yeah.
that what they want to do post MBA, whether there's a strong language requirement in that particular domain and function. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Having said that, I would also want to clarify that some people do have internships in Amsterdam, and I'm talking about Indians in Amsterdam, Paris, and Barcelona, but they are not consulting internships. They are some different roles in good companies. But for consulting, you generally, at least in the top firms, you need to know the language because your clients are
Yeah,
going to be speaking the local language.
true.
But we have then people interviewing at, I would say, boutique consulting firms that did not have a language barrier as well.
Okay.
But like you mentioned, it's very important to realize what do you want. Does that country offer you
Yeah,
what you want? And if not, it doesn't make sense to come to either Germany, Barcelona, uh, Paris, or anywhere else.
true, 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 true. Uh, just last bit, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to take much time of yours. Any specific insight you want to share with people who are planning to apply for ISADE, in be it in terms of application, in terms of essay during interviews? Any tips you would want to share with them?
Yeah, so I'll start off with I think the recent insight that I got. I haven't validated it, it's not first-hand information, but they if you are applying for consulting or if your goal anywhere mentions that you want to do consulting after your MBA, they would want you to have a brand name that is globally recognized or that you come from a consulting company beforehand
Hmm.
because it's very difficult for people to pivot to consulting. So what was happening here is that SRD was admitting great candidates, but unfortunately, the companies that uh, shortlist candidates, they had only consulting background, and then a lot
Right.
of people ended up being disappointed that oh, we do not even have a shortlist and all of that. So I think SRD is targeting those people who have a consulting background, and that is going to help them. If their goal is consulting again, if their
Sure.
goal is something else, it's perfectly fine.
Yep.
Entrepreneurship always stands out at SRD. So if you are an entrepreneur and you want to do it, SRD is one of the best schools to do entrepreneurship. Like come and study entrepreneurship here,
Yep.
so that background is going to help you as well. The second would be in terms of the application or the interview. To be very honest, it's not an interview, it's a very formal conversation like we are having. I think I was asked the same questions more or less on why you asked, like why Barcelona, why Esade, some characteristics here and there.
Yep.
Sure, the way the questions were asked probably might be different, but it was more or less the same. They just want to know you better and how you have written yourself in the application. And your goal needs to be very strong. So have a very long-term vision attached to your goal. uh, don't be very short-sighted when you're doing it. Think about the practicalities. Like I mentioned, language is a consideration if you want to, like saying that, oh, you want to come and do consulting in Spain is not going to happen. Even they know that. So don't try to make up things. Just be very genuine in your application, and show a lot of teamwork. I think if I had to put a characteristics, like talk about my strengths, I would put teamwork at the top because SRD values that a lot. So I think those are the tips for the applicants who want to come to SRD.
Great. Thank you so much. This was pretty interesting. A lot of insights in terms of your experience in terms of applications. And I'm pretty sure all our listeners and viewers will have a pretty great understanding of how they should approach applying for ISADE, or let's say just MBA applications in general.
MBA applications, yeah.
Yeah. And I think in terms of timeline, you correctly mentioned anyone who's looking for September applications. I think, yeah, we are in April. We're not saying
Yeah.
that you're late, but yeah, I think it'll be better if you just, buckle up and give
Yeah,
your
I mean, it
GMAT.
also depends. It depends on your aptitude, very honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not someone who's very academically smart, so that's my recommendation
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
But if you know you can crack these exams very easily, there are some people who can do it in 2 months. So go ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, focus more on your applications as well. Don't
True.
let that time go out.
Great. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Nice talking to you. And thank you so much for taking time out and really appreciate all the insights.
Thank you so much, for having me over. Let me know if I can help. And if candidates want to reach out to me, feel free to ask them to drop me a message on LinkedIn.
For sure.
I'm responsive, so glad to help anyone who wants it.
Great. Thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you so much, you too, Par.